Did you all see that preview at the end of this episode of One Piece? Oh, next week is going to be hype. Like, I could already tell by the way the preview looked, like the animation looks really good. And judging by the scenes, we got to see Sabo and Fujitora. Looks like they're going at it in the preview. Yo, that's gonna be badass. That's gonna be straight up badass. So, looking forward to next week's One Piece episode because that preview, I'm hyped. Now, before I get into the episode, I was told by a couple of Chibits this week. I think I was told around Thursday and Friday. I was told, I had a couple of private messages in my inbox. A couple of Chibits said that there would be a new opening song to this week's One Piece, but there's no new opening song, so I'm guessing it might be for next week. If someone can clarify this, please let me know, because I was hearing that we were going to get a new opening or something with this week's episode, so yeah. Anyways, getting into this episode of One Piece. Wow, yeah, there was a lot of running in this episode. Like, that's just one thing I want to point out. There was a lot of running, but a lot of hints and build-up for next week's episode, along with the final battle with Doffy. So, let's, cover some groundwork real quick. So, about probably 60% of the episode is seeing running, kind of seeing our characters run from point to point B, point A to point B, and seeing how they're, meeting up in certain areas all over the island and, getting ready for the next battle. That's kind of what this episode was. It was a setup episode for the next upcoming episodes for the final confrontation with Doffy and his men. We had some hints at Law's backstory in this episode. Now, obviously, we found out that there's some form of connection with Law and Doffy, and Doffy's brother in this episode, and that right there, very shocking. We find out that this person, Corazon, was killed by Doffy. So, what happened? That's the question we have to wonder right now. And judging by the past, you saw snow going on with the animation. You saw crying. It looked like the brother was crying from what we saw in the flashback. What happened? What happened in that? And is this the real reason why Law wants to get his revenge against Doffy? Is this why he wants to go after Doffy and kill him? Is this the real reason? So hopefully we will get this backstory very soon, get Law's backstory very soon. I remember when I was reading the manga at this scene though, Oda cock-teased that backstory, like, oh my god, like this right here, I was like, oh my god, this backstory, and then, we had to wait a little bit. So, I'm just gonna say, I'm liking the way the backstory looks. Like, getting to see that little bit of, Corazon and all that looked pretty cool. So, animation of this episode, when it came to One Piece, animation's okay. I mean, it was good in some parts. The main parts that the animation was really good at was when you got to see, like, these overview scenes, especially looking at Pika and the destruction he has caused in the background. I guess the backgrounds of this episode was really the major highlight when it came to the animation and art, because, like, at the beginning of the episode, you get to see this, like, landscape of the island, and you see Pika's, like, giant form crushing, the town in with his fist, and you see just the devastation his one punch caused, and I love the artwork in that scene. It just goes to show you how brutal his punch is and how deadly it is, and I got more of a atmosphere from this episode when it came to the manga. Like, in the manga, I know Pika was very strong, he was very huge, I know the punch was powerful, but in this episode of the anime, just seeing the devastation he has caused from this different perspectives of the way Toei Animation used these filler scenes to showcase Pika in his destruction, I like that. I actually did enjoy getting to see scenes like that. It built up the suspense and tension of the episode. Music-wise, music choice, we heard the classical One Piece music theme, the sad music when Law started talking about his backstory. You heard that sad theme playing, and it makes you just want to know what is going to happen. And you have it to where poor Usopp, he's once again being praised, like, Usolendo, Usolendo, Usolendo. They're all praising Usopp, and he's shitting bricks in this episode. He's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. So yeah, that's this episode of One Piece. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, how do you feel about this week's episode? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? I mean, how do you feel about all the events that happened in this episode? How do you feel about getting to see a little bit of a glimpse into Law's backstory? Did you enjoy that? Do you think we'll be getting that anytime soon? How do you feel about the preview for next week's episode? Getting to see Sabo versus Fujitora from what we can see from the preview? Let me know. Y'all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.